Hey everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program RP-0. This is our Twitch recap from last week where we were celebrating the 4-year anniversary of this Kerbal Space Program series. I did start it off on Twitch with a live stream, so it seems appropriate that every year we try to mark it with a much bigger, longer, more robust live stream. We were doing our Mars launches for our Mars surface installation, and we are starting off with the lab module, which will launch on this DN6 Delta with the six complement of SRPs. Even though this is the lightest module of the entire, I guess, group going out, I don't know how it got assigned to this launcher as opposed to the dual SRB variant, but here we are. So Ascent curve went really well. This thing behaves a lot better than the DN6B that it is pretty much going to replace as far as our mainline heavy-duty launcher is concerned, just because it is well, easier to get off the pad. Those SRBs help a whole hell of a lot. So there is SRB SEP. They still had a little bit of oomph left in their tank, but they are clearing away, and we are now under power of just the boosters and the core stage, holding it at a steady coming up on 2 TWR. So I should say that I had planned on doing all 6 of our Mars window launches during this live stream because I set aside the extra time to stream on Twitch for a solid 4 hours, thinking there's absolutely no way that I shouldn't be able to get 6 launches and 6 interplanetary transfers done in 4 hours. It seems excessive saying it out loud, but of course it's Twitch and this is KSP 1.3, so we had a absolutely horrendous frame rate to contend with, and that did make what would be a 10-minute ascent to orbit take somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. Now, that did hinder our launch schedule for the live stream by quite a bit. There's booster SEP down and away, swiftly followed by fairing SEP, and now we can see the protective aero shell and heat shield. I thought I'd go in here and try to turn on the comms, but hard to get an angle, and without the focus camera tool that is not available to me in 1.1.3, you know, it's just not going to happen. There is a bug in Remote Tech, however, and because this has a crewable command module that is not the root part, it assumes local control even when there is no one aboard. So as long as we have battery power, we'll have full avionics control because we're under our tonnage limit also. So there's that. And here's the very predictable DN6 core stage roll wiggle that, well, we just have. It's just a thing. We are also controlling from the Saturn avionics as part of the core booster stage and not the onboard avionics for the lab rover module itself, which has greatly reduced our wiggles on the way to orbit. We actually don't have to boogie noodle this thing, but it does still have some residual effects. They will be a lot more pronounced on our next launch because it is of higher tonnage. And there is Miko at 211 by 195, a stage SEP, and we'll quickly switch out to the upper stage, where I thought I had activated, well, I know I had activated all those radiators by default in the VAB. Apparently that just doesn't translate over, so I guess it's just not going to be a thing. And finally we'll get our comms set up so we're not actually cheating the system, and then start rolling out our next launch. So we've got 4,125 meters per second in this Delta upper stage. And we'll go ahead and plot our maneuver node to Mars. It comes out at 3.826 kilometers per second. Not bad. Well within budget, and hopefully within budget enough to where when I inevitably screw this up, we will still be able to get our nice rendezvous. There is no primary drive engine on the payload itself. So if we're off target, we could use RCS, but that's going to pretty much screw up the landing procedure for this thing, as it needs as much RCS fuel as we can stuff into it to keep itself angled for that approach and descent. And you can see, yeah, we've already lost a little out of our side tanks here, so we're going to take the time to go around and lock the fuel on those, so we can keep as much fuel in there for our descent profile as humanly possible. We will ditch the Delta upper stage after we get into Mars SOI. Ooh, why was that so hard? And then Aero capture into a Mars orbit, where we'll then ditch the heat shield, make a few Aero braking passes, and then use RCS hopefully to very gently circularize our orbit and give us enough time to plan our descent. We have 4 modules going out this window: the core stage, 2 resupply rovers, and the lab module. So 4 of our 6 launches this window will be just this surface installation. We do have to take the time and effort to try to get them all on the surface, you know, kind of close to one another. I think we're going to land the core module first, and then we'll try to target everything else around that landing site. Hopefully we can actually land in a new and interesting biome. Of course, that is always the goal, but just being able to do some research on the surface of Mars is going to give us a bonus to our science return, which of course for us translates into a bonus of money bonus money. Extra spaceos, that's what counts. And so even if we have to pull data that we were researching on Harmonia Station, we have some things that have yet to go to the lab, some very high point value things. We can load that into our descent module, and then when we land the crew, they can take that data with them and research it on the surface of Mars for, I think it amounts to about a 25% bump in its return value. So, you know, not a bad deal if you ask me, and we get to practice landing things on Mars, which is, no matter how many times you do it, not very easy. So here's a map view as we are coming up on the last 200 some odd meters per second for our transfer burn. That looks pretty good. Shutting down, not a rendezvous. Very, very close, however. 30 meters per second will put us in the SOI, but then it's the yeah, it's everything else that really, really screws this up. So we were trying to combine all of our maneuver nodes into a single maneuver node. Initially, this is what I usually do when I do these things, and then trying to get that as lined up with Harmonia Station as possible. But it's coming in about 100 meters per second more than what we have on tap, unfortunately. So in the name of efficiency, we did try to break out Mech Jeb and the maneuver planner doohickey, and then try to see if Mech Jeb couldn't score us something that was just maybe a little bit more efficient. We were hoping, anyway. Mech Jeb, well, I'll give you a couple spoilers because we're not quite to this space in the footage. So we had just a little while to go, but we would eventually break it out here, try to get Mech Jeb to tell us something maybe a little bit more efficient. But you know, when we hit the create node, which we did get to eventually, not this one, but yeah, fine-tune closest approach, 309.3 meters per second. However, it did not actually create the maneuver node, which I found to be absolutely astonishing. So we would go about creating this maneuver node ourselves, doing splitting it actually into 2 parts, because yeah, you can see this if we try to do this while we're still in Earth SOI, the plane change bit of it is what's killing us and putting this way way out of budget. I would really prefer to have a little bit of Delta V left in this Delta upper stage when we actually arrive at Mars. So at the behest of chat, we would actually be splitting this maneuver into 2 smaller maneuvers, which generally speaking is much, much less efficient, but plane change maneuvers are a lot more efficient when you do them at slower speeds, i.e. in deeper space. So we will make our prograde correction here while we are still at Earth SOI, and then our plane change correction when we are in deep solar orbit. And this actually turns out to be much, much, much more fuel efficient. I think it's it's 42 meters per second to get us into the Mars SOI, and then another 20 something meters per second to correct into an angle where we are much happier making this approach. So glad that only took me 4 years to actually determine was worthwhile to do. So don't be stubborn and dumb like me, everyone. Don't be afraid to split your maneuver nodes, especially when there's a plane change involved. So ullage in the engine. I know it's only 46 meters per second, but that HG3 is just going to make absolutely terribly quick work of it. And then we'll tune our second node out in deep space. And we still have a pretty good line on things, and we think we can actually get a pretty good bead on lining up with Harmonia Station for only 74 meters per second, leaving us still about 100 meters per second left in the tank to, I don't know, start our braking when we get there. I still have no idea how much Delta V that's going to take. Anyway, on to Launch 2, and this one is going to be weird for YouTube because it coincided with an actual launch that happened right around the same time, also going to Mars. So it only seemed right that we kind of watched some of the coverage of that. Unfortunately, YouTube tends to frown on these sorts of things. So part of that footage has just been removed, which is why we skip ahead in the launch but don't have audio, because I still had audio from said other launch going. So you'll have to deal without the engine sounds and just my pleasant voice for just a little while. So you can see this is where we had more Boogie Noodle. Despite controlling still from the Saturn core that is part of the DN6 core stage, we got a lot of bobbles. Fortunately, it was not affecting our prograde vector, so it made things look weird, but didn't really affect how difficult this thing was to fly. Booster SEP, those are down and away. Again, this should have been the one that has the 6-segment boosters, but I guess somebody in the allocations department has just, I don't know, screwed it up. But here we are, and it's too late to change it, and nor do we have the money. So we're just going to make do. DN6 alone has enough Delta V to put this cargo into orbit. It's just we get a little bit better results with the SRBs instead of just sitting there on the pad roasting things forever and ever and ever while we slowly burn off enough fuel to have a 1.0 TWR. These things, I guess they do happen. There is booster SEP, and fairing SEP is down and away, so right off the bat we're going to walk in this big circle and lock these RCS tanks. We're also then going to go inside the Aero shell and turn on the radiators to try to keep some of the kerosene and liquid oxygen in our fuel tanks, because we need that for, I don't know, making orbit and targeting our entry burn. It's a little too difficult to get in there with all the shaking around, so I guess we'll do that after we get to orbit, and we will also roll out our next launch, the BPR Block 1 Chestnut M, slated to take the next batch of crew out to Harmonia Station. So this will be the first time we've had more than 6 Kerbals aboard Harmonia Station. We will not be keeping 10 Kerbals on the station for very long, because 4 of them are hopefully going to be deployed down to our new surface research station. I guess we should start thinking about names for. Let's wait to make sure that the landings are a success and we can do the whole on-surface integration thing, and then we'll talk about naming it. Probably. So, you know, there's that. So we actually do have to tip down a little bit as our apogee was getting just a little bit out of hand, but this is what happens when your frame rate is terrible and you're paying more attention to chat than you're piloting. So core stage separated down and away. Radiators for the Delta upper stage have been turned on, and we will slowly make a lap around and kick on all of the radiators for our Aero shell, hoping these things don't affect our, I don't know, our landing procedure all that much. They shouldn't add so much weight where it drastically affects things. At least that's my hope, because I really did not want to redo the weeks and weeks and weeks of testing that I have done on this thing, just because I had a little boil-offy problem that I did not account for, because I just did very short rounds of testing. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to see how that all goes. But if I ignore the vessel, boil off doesn't happen. So hopefully the less interaction we do with this thing before it gets to Mars, the better. I guess we'll have to find out. Our maneuver node is planted 3.7 kilometers per second this time, so we're actually getting closer to our primary window, and things are just going to get a little bit more effective. What is not is our avionics control under SAS. Yeah, there does appear to be a bit of an oscillation there, which is going to cost us some efficiency. It's not just is not going to be the greatest thing for us, but I don't know. We'll just have to not use physics warp as much as we'd like, and the ironic bit here is the yellow clock was running so slowly that putting into 4x physics warp actually made the game run in real time, which KSP was not very happy with, I can tell you that much, because it just, well, it likes to create all kinds of nifty problems for us. So it was yet again another very long burn, and having to do it without the aid of physics warp did give me a nice chance to engage with chat and check up on the launch and see how things were going for real space programs doing real things. For, well, we'd give physics warp a try, at least for a little bit. It does start jittering again. This is just, I don't know, a physics warp issue. Very common. It happens a lot, especially with higher part count vessels where things might be attached through a node that isn't exactly the super strongest, but at least we were able to launch the thing this time without it going completely wobble noodle on us. So I'm actually pretty thankful that we were even able to get this this project into orbit, let alone on its way to Mars in such a short development cycle. I think we only started prototyping these just a few short months ago, which I guess would have been 2 years ago or so in game. Of course, development cycles in KSP are not exactly, you know, true to form, because development and testing takes 0 in-game time. But we were able to get them built for this window, and I think that's pretty dang phenomenal. And I'm super excited we were able to cobble the money together and make this happen. But yet again on this this burn, we have no rendezvous or no encounter with Mars. So instead of just I don't know, messing around with it a whole bunch, we're just going to repeat the same procedure. So yeah, 64 meters per second, and we will get our encounter with Mars, and then we will make a mid-course correction somewhere out in heliocentric orbit and do the last little touch-up corrections there so that we can encounter Mars in the way that we would like. So, I don't know, I guess it feels more legit. It seems to be working as intended, and it is rather efficient. Now, we do have 655 meters per second of available delta V to us, so that actually helps our cause, but every little extra bit that we have to start our capture is less stress that we have to put on the heat shield, so that's less or shallower in the atmosphere that we have to do to achieve a capture, which means it's going to take us less delta V to, I don't know, put it into a parking orbit and then retreat from that parking orbit to do aero braking, because all of our testing was done for a circularized orbit of about 250 kilometers. So we really only have applicable downrange and telemetry data for something similar to that. So here is our encounter is a thing. We will be going to Mars. Just how well we go to Mars depends on our next maneuver, which is a very easy 60.1 meters per second in I don't know, just about as many days. So we will set the alarm and then move on, where we are finally going to launch yet another BPR with a Chestnut M. Now we just need to pick which 4 extraordinarily lucky Kerbals get to go on this grand adventure. We basically have a bunch of rookies who have been to orbit maybe once, and the crew of the last Mars mission. Yegor, Diana, Sally, Lewis. They are obviously the most qualified to operate this vehicle, but I think we really want to rank up some fresh new faces. So after much deliberation, we have settled on our crew of Michael Vitochkin, Tatiana Novoshanova, Linda Kim, and Billy Barrett will take to the skies in this next grand adventure, and hopefully they will, part of them, some of them, maybe half of them, will be the crew that gets to venture down to the Martian surface to activate our new surface base. And if everything goes well, maybe all 10 of them will get a chance to spend a year or 2 on the surface of Mars, seeing what future colonizations could look like. So BPR cleared the tower a good long while ago. We are up and moving. Frame rate was a little better for this launch because KSP crashed, and so we had to restart it, which always helps clear things out and get things back up and moving again. But this probably has the part count of both prior DN6 launches combined, so you know, it was still very, very slow going, and this actually looks like it's closer to real time. That time clock's still going about half, so we're probably in like 2x time acceleration, even though this footage has been sped up at least 8x. So, you know, hey, there's that. We are coming up on our first stage booster set. There they go. First set of boosters is down and away, so we're going to start watching the very bottom tank of our stage 2 boosters, as they will be departing the core stage in just a few short minutes once our TWR gets up to something that might make the crew just a little uncomfortable. Off they go, and our TWR drops back down to sub 2. This was engineered specifically to do this way so that we could lift a lot of really heavy cargo without having to worry about our TWR getting too out of control. Now, our last booster separation, these are just the twin engine boosters. The number of engines for each set of booster goes down by 1 per booster, from 4 to 3. These have 2, and then there's just a big stack of engines on the core stage, doing a lot of work for way too long because they don't have a test flight configuration. Alright, stage 3 boosters down and away. They will kiss very gently as they leave the spacecraft, and there goes the escape tower. We are now in abort to orbit mode, which, not a problem. We have gobs of TWR just all over the place. By that I mean sub 1 all the way around. We can just, we'll tail stand as long as we can get clear of the explosion. We should be fine. Beauty fairing panel separation has also occurred. We are now almost in our deployable Echo upper stage mode, but we need to tail stand it just a little bit to build up some time to apogee, because the next airlit RS-25 DE stage just really doesn't have the TWR we would like, but it was the best solution for the time, and well, we're out of money, so we don't really want to change the rocket while we still have spare parts for this one. So there may be a new iteration of this coming up in, I don't know, future months. I don't want to promise anything, but it is on my list of things that I would absolutely like to do. So just be warned. There was core stage separation and the light of those 5 RS-25 engines that will carry us almost all the way to orbit. It is kind of planned this way so that we deorbit our debris, that we get one little touch-up launch from those 3 HG3s on the Echo upper stage that will, I don't know, just nudge the crew the rest of the way to orbit before we will relight them to make our interplanetary transfer. Unfortunately, however, I was completely out of time and was unable to make said interplanetary transfer during this live stream. It's amazing. I had 4 hours. I wanted to do 6 launches. I got 2.5 done. So yeah, there's that. So if you want to know what I'm doing on next week's live stream, we're going to keep launching stuff at Mars. And so I guess that makes this part 1 of 2. So yeah. This is what we're probably going to do at least next week, maybe the week after. And there is separation of the RS-25 stage. We'll kick on some radiators. We will coast up to our apoapsis because we, I don't know, we burned too good. So we can actually do a coast phase. We have a still a very low TWR, but we have very, very little delta V that we need to take care of in order to get this thing into orbit. We're actually going to spend more time rotating ourselves around, which we'll just let the gimbals kind of compensate for that. Good light on all 3 HG3 engines before they will push us the rest of the way into orbit. And there it is, 341 by 158, and we will move them into a holding pattern at least for 1 orbit and 1 episode while we await me to have the time to push them the rest of the way to Mars. So I do look forward to continuing this mission specifically, but the rest of our Mars launches and our Mars surface base in the coming episodes, just so you know what's coming up. And while I've got you here, I do just want to say thank you so much for 4 absolutely amazing years of KSP RP-0 on this channel. It has been probably the most fun thing that I've ever done, and I'm just absolutely amazed that y'all are still here after 4 years, and that I'm still here after 4 years, and that this game has this kind of staying power and this kind of longevity to keep it interesting, despite me playing it, I don't know, sometimes every day, sometimes once a week, dispersed throughout in there for the last 4 years. Thanks so much for sticking it out with me. I really do appreciate it. But that's going to do it for this one, and I will see all of you in the next one. So until then, see you later.